Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to, what is this? I think this is the 6th installment. Is that correct? This is the 6th installment of the Academy of Shem and Aver. Let me just write that down, the 6th installment for next time so I don't make a mistake. The 6th installment, here we go. Last week, when we were running on empty at 2 in the morning Israel time, 1,000 feet from the Academy of Shem and Aver in the north of Sfat, we learned tragic news. And it was very overwhelming to me and probably to you that the Academy of Shem and Aver does not exist in Sfat alone, much to contrary popular belief. We found out that indeed there were several academies of learning by Shem and Aver, and that's what we went into with a lot of new material last week and with a lot of repetition. It was a little bit dry and technical, and if we can just hold on and remember last week, we're going to jump into this week. Again, the audio listener will benefit. The visual learner will have to really try hard because I am not an expert in, what do you call that? Whatever you call PowerPoint. But it's a lot easier today. I have it written out very clear. We're going to jump in and really understand how we break the mold of the old understanding that the Academy of Shem and Aver was a little house, a little shack somewhere where a couple of guys were learning Torah. All right, that's what ancient history would have you believe, and that's not actually the truth of ancient history. We're going to find out last week and more so this week that Shem and Aver were not just a one-building institution for 2 people. They were not even a one-building institution for 20 people. They were not even only all over the land of Israel. They were all over the world. And we are going to say in this number, expect this number to grow. I don't expect it to stop anytime soon. There are, at this point, 7 academies of learning. And that 7 expands to a really large number that we will explain how that large number works. So let's, at this point, stop assuming that Shem and Aver's Academy of Learning is a couple of guys over a candle in a little house by a river learning a Torah that we don't learn today, because it's not true. We do learn their Torah that they do today. Their Torah is the basis of the Torah today, and they had institutions worldwide. This was a big novelty to me last week when I found it inside the sources. Today we're going to go back in the sources as well, with a little bit more clarity and direction than last week. Last week we opened up the learning to possibilities that we weren't used to. Breaking the mold, understanding that Shem and Aver were very large, very instrumental, very integral, and very relative today. So, with that said, last week, let me just give you a running start like we usually do from last week, and then we'll jump into today. Last week essentially covered one major issue. And that issue that we covered last week was that in the binding of Isaac, which in Hebrew is called Akedas Yitzchak, or Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, when Abraham was commanded by Hashem to slaughter Isaac for whatever reason, to be an offering. And what we're saying is if you look in the scripture in that verse, the language in Hebrew, and you have to understand, when you learn the Torah in English, you're getting a copy of a copy of a copy at best. You'll say, Abraham and Isaac settled in Beersheba. If you're lucky, it'll say settled in Beersheba. When you get into the original Hebrew, it'll say the language of yeshiva, which in our English terminology for this lesson, yeshiva literally means academy. And what the commentaries will tell us, that Abraham and Isaac were entering the academy or yeshiva of Shem and Aver. However, popular belief will tell you that the Academy of Shem and Aver was only in the north of Israel, in Safat, where we are 1,000 feet away from that academy right this second. But if Abraham and Isaac entered into the academy in Beersheba, well, that makes 2. So then we went in and we explored all the different other levels of academy. We said that Shem had another offspring, Ashur, the offspring of his Ashur, who settled an academy of learning in Nineveh. Nineveh was a great city. I guess it was around Iran, Iraq, Syria, that area, northern Babylon. So how many is that now? Beersheba 1, Sfat 2, Nineveh 3. But however, Jacob, apparently, as we're going to say in about 2 minutes from now, was learning at the Temple Mount, and Abraham and Shem met on the Temple Mount, and they exchanged Torah ideals there. That's 4. And then we read a commentary last week, which we'll go over again today, that says that Shem was the head of the academy in the Garden of Eden. That's 5. Then we're saying Isaac himself had an academy. That's 6. And Adam Harishon, the original Adam that we know from the story of the Garden of Eden and the Torah, Adam decreed where in the world, not just Israel, but the world, where there would be academies of learning and where there wouldn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Count them up. 7 academies of learning instituted by Shem and Aver. Okay, so now that we understand Abraham brought Isaac to enter the academy of Shem and Aver in Beersheba, and the commentaries there distinguish and differentiate between the academy of Shem and the academy of Aver. Thus, we are forced to say there was a separate academy of Shem, a separate academy of Aver. That gives us Beersheba, that gives us Sfat. Now that we have Sfat and Beersheba, we went on to say the Garden of Eden, we went on to say Jerusalem, we went on to say Isaac and Adam, that's 6, and then we had the original understanding that Shem had an academy outside the land of Israel, which made Adam's prophecy possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's the repetition and clarity, really last week in a nutshell, how we have at least 7 academies corresponding to Shem, his grandson Aver, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. One quick question. What is the single biggest proof that the Jewish people in the Torah that we learn today still learn and go by the Torah of Shem and Aver? The most basic proof we have is the Torah is written in what you and I and everybody else that speaks English would call the Torah in Hebrew. And in Israel, what do they call the language that is spoken? Not Hebrew, because that's an English word. They call it Ivrit. And Ivrit comes from Aver, as in Shem and Aver. Thus, the fact that Abraham was called Avraham Ivri, Abraham the Hebrew, from his grandfather Aver, from his grandfather Shem. Thus, the fact that we still go by Hebrew shows there was never a breaking of the tradition of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to the 12 tribes, to the Mount Sinai, to the Torah of today, from its roots in the academies of Shem and Aver. Now that we understand that Shem and Aver lives on today, the Torah of his lives on today, let's go into the verses and understand in the original text how we understand the development and the offspring of these academies of learning. Anybody following along at home, or if you listen to this recording again, get ready and get out your Bible, your Tanakh, Genesis Bereshis, chapter 28, verse 10. The parashas Vayetze. I'm going to read it in Hebrew, and then I'll read everything in English. Don't you worry. Okay, we are in Vayetze, the chapter 28, verse 10 in Genesis Bereshis. Are we ready to roll? Good. The very, very beginning of the parsha. First words. Vayetzi Yaakov mi Beersheva v'yelech Charana. Jacob went out from Beersheva and he went to Haran. Right? Jacob was having his struggles with Esav. Jacob got the blessings from Isaac. Jacob feared of his brother. His parents told him to go to seek a wife, Rachel and Leah. He's going to go out from Beersheva, and he's going to go to Haran. Okay. Now what we're going to do is read a quick commentary, which is what triggered the whole learning episode of the different houses of Shem and Aver. Now there's a commentary on the Torah. His name is the Baal HaTurim. He lived, I think in the year 1400. And let's just look at what he says. Okay, it's a little bit Hebrew right now, but bear with me. Vayetzi Yaakov mi Beersheva. The words that we're looking at now are Yaakov, Jacob, mi Beersheva, from the city of Beersheva. Now remember, Beersheva was where Isaac and Abraham went and ruled in this so-called Academy of Shem. Whatever that means. So now what we're going to say is Jacob from Beersheva. Jacob went out from Beersheva. The end letters, the base, that sounds like a B of Jacob. The resh, it sounds like an R from Meber. And Sheva, the ayin, that makes the last syllable of Sheva. Jacob from Beersheva. Jacob, Meber, Sheva. That spells the name Aver. Thus, it's a hint that when Jacob left Beersheva, what does the commentary say? That he was hidden or buried in the house of Aver. That's already radically different than what we know. All we know is Shem, he had his little academy that's not relevant. Well, guess what? It's very relevant, it's very not simple, and there's more than one academy. So now we have Shem's academy, and we have Aver's academy. Here we're building up the idea that there's at least two. And then we say, Jacob went out from Beersheva. The end letters spells Arba, 4, as in 14 years that Jacob served. And then we say, from Beersheva, the end letters spells Shem, which therefore the commentary says that also, Jacob was buried or hidden in the house of Shem. So now we have Shem, and we have Aver. And then we're going to get into a commentary in about 20 minutes or so. And we're going to look at inside the word from Beersheva. We use the resh to spell Aver, the mem to spell part of Shem. Okay? And the other two letters that are left are an aleph and a base that spells the word from Beer, as in Beersheva. And those other two letters spell Av, father, showing that there were 3 academies in Beersheva. Aver, Shem, and Isaac. Thus, what we have now is 3 academies. 3 out of 7. And to refresh your memory, we're going to read the excerpt from the tradition, how Abraham brought Isaac to the yeshiva, the Academy of Learning. Let's get familiar with the term yeshiva. Yeshiva is Academy of Learning Torah. I'm going to go ahead and read through this very quickly from the Hebrew to the English. That way we are caught up. This is Abraham and Isaac. And how Isaac, we're speaking about Jacob just now. Jacob's learning in Yeshiva of Shem and Aver. But we're going to back up one step and show how Isaac was the original student. After Abraham met Shem and in Jerusalem, which again was the other level of yeshiva, That would make 4. And in the Garden of Eden, 5. And outside the land, 6. And Ashur, Nineveh, 7. Let's get familiar all the time with those 7. So, in the Beersheba, it remained how many days till Hebron? Okay. Now, Abraham took Isaac with him to the academy of Shem, son of Noah, to learn there the Torah. And even though that Abraham was a tremendous wise man in Torah, and he knew all the Torah by heart, but it was Shem who was much greater in knowledge of how to learn the Torah, and this was the craft that was unique to Shem, where we say that Shem was one of the 4 craftsmen of redemption. There's Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, Eliyahu a Navi, Elijah the prophet, and Shem, son of Noah, as the righteous priest. So Shem really is the ultimate craftsman of Torah, and what's the proof? He helped build the craft of the ark. And he built the craft of the ark with Torah craft. Noah built it with, let's grossly say, nuts and bolts. And it was Shem that brought the spiritual element of divinity into the ark. Now, the reason why Isaac was brought to the academy of Shem and Aver, Shem in particular, was that there were many students, and there were those there who he could talk to, many friends that were there who were excellent in Torah. Okay, and Abraham and Isaac had this relationship that Abraham would not have been able to satisfy the respect issues of Isaac, meaning Isaac needed somebody other than his father to teach him the Torah, and Shem fit the bill. Now, we'll go further a little bit more. There was an idea that Sarah wanted Isaac to learn, in particular at the academy of Shem and Aver, because when she was suckling Isaac, Shem showed up, and Shem imbued into Sarah the fear of God that went into Isaac. A woman is able to draw spiritual influx when she's nursing, as seen by Sarah's ability to nurse all the babies of the time. She miraculously got milk enough to feed everyone, and every one of those children became God-fearing souls. But Isaac, because Sarah had extra reverence for Shem, the greatest Torah scholar probably that ever lived at that time, and actually Moses was an incarnation of Shem, therefore I'd say the two are synonymous. And Sarah then was able to draw into Isaac's suckling Pachad Yitzchak, the dread, the terror, the fear, ultimate terror, fear of God into Isaac. Question, where their academies are located? What was that question reference to? If you can bring that up, and I'll respond to it.
Disregard it.
Okay. Now, we're going to jump to the end, and we're going to say that Isaac was brought to Shem, and there are those that say that the angels brought Isaac to the this academy, and it was there where he learned from Shem 3 years. Now, remember, Shem, this is a little bit abstract, but Shem, in his meeting with Abraham on the Temple Mount, the angel Michael was actually channeled into Shem. This is the aspect of a priest, of a Cohen, that it was Shem on our plane of existence. But it's almost like a prism, that if you look into Shem, which Abraham did, it actually had the ability to go all the way up to God, that through the different levels of the worlds. So that Abraham was looking at Shem, and the Zohar, the book of Kabbalah, tells you that Michael was actually present as a participant in Shem. So when Isaac goes to learn Torah from Shem, Isaac having received the priesthood from Abraham, who received it from Shem, Isaac therefore has 2 planes of existence. He can operate with Shem on this plane, Yet his intentions in spirituality can go even up in the angelic realm. Thus, the angels brought Isaac to this academy of Shem for 3 years on heaven and on earth on the simultaneous plane of existence. Such was the nature of the binding of Isaac the Akedah. And there are those that say that the piece of his neck, the skin on the neck became like a stalk, and until Abraham offered the ram in his place, the angels took Isaac and brought him into the midst of the Garden of Eden in order that Isaac should be healed. Now remember, that is Shem's number one job. He had access to the Garden of Eden because Noah was maimed by a lion and was not able to offer. Thus, he had a stake in the Garden of Eden. He ate from the tree of life, and he essentially became the head instructor in the yeshiva in the Garden of Eden. Thus, the angels brought the awareness of Isaac up to that level. So Isaac was learning on this plane of existence and the higher plane of existence. He was down here for 3 years and up there for 3 years. That's how Isaac learned the Torah from Shem. Now, that was also in Beersheba. Now we're being caught up to Jacob. Jacob thus learns the Torah in Beersheba from Aver. Jacob learns the Torah in the aspect of Beersheba from Shem. Jacob then was going to trek to the north of Israel, Tzfat, the real higher academy of Shem. He's going to travel to the Temple Mount, which we'll explain how that happens momentarily, where the angelic realm of the angels, such as the Akedah. Thus, he was in Beersheba, of Aver, of Isaac, of Shem, Temple Mount, that's 4, Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, 5, outside the land of Israel by the house of Lavan, where Jacob married Rachel and Leah, 6, and that brings us the final level. How do we have the level of the entire land being outside the land of where Adam decreed where academies of learning would be, the level of the yeshiva of Shem and Aver? Now, we have to understand there is a miracle that happened at Jacob's spending the night at the Temple Mount. When Jacob spent the night at the Temple Mount, 5 miracles happened to him. And one of those miracles was that the entire land of Israel folded up under his head as like a pillow, that the entire land of Israel became sanctified. When it became sanctified, all the sparks of holiness from the world that Adam saw where would be an academy of learning, Jacob triggered it as activated. As Jacob was essentially the essential student of Shem and Aver. As Jacob served in all these different academies for 50 years. And we can pinpoint all 50 years. When the lands folded up under Jacob, that's one aspect of 50. Jacob learned in Nineveh, the great city of Nineveh, when struggling to marry Rachel and Leah, that was by the offspring of Shem, Ashur. Now, therefore, that's the 2 of the 7. Jacob learned in the aspect of the Garden of Eden because when he was in Tzfat, the north of Israel, which is 3 out of 7, the gates of the Garden of Eden are in Tzfat. Thus, even though Shem had an aspect of Beersheba with Isaac and with Jacob, when Shem met Abraham at the Temple Mount, that was the angelic yeshiva, that's 4. Jacob, they say that Jacob's ladder actually stretched from Beersheba all the way to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Thus you see that Jacob was at Jerusalem, Nineveh, outside the land, Beersheba, Aver, and the Garden of Eden, because when the land was folded up under his head as a pillow, the entire land was there, the level of the Garden of Eden. Basically, Jacob had a higher consciousness that night. He woke up, and the 12 stones became one stone under his head. And he saw the angels going up and down to the heavenly academy. So there we can understand Jacob essentially went through all 7 levels of learning. Beersheba, Aver. Beersheba, Shem. Shem, Sfat. Garden of Eden. Nineveh by Rachel and Leah. And outside the land of Israel, connected to Nineveh. 7 levels, 50 years. All the levels of the academies of Shem and Aver. And also, let's not forget Isaac. He also learned from his father Isaac. The question now is to understand what was Isaac's level of Torah. We're going to say momentarily that Esav, however you say it, English and Hebrew, Esav, his son, the rival of Jacob, Shem didn't want Esav. Esav thought that he was superior in learning Torah to Jacob. However, Shem saw that Jacob would be the one who would attain the attribute, give truth to Jacob. As Jacob would father the 12 tribes, Jacob would essentially be the number 1 student of Shem and Aver, by servicing for 50 years all the levels of academies. Esav, however, is more arrogant and thinks that he knows more, and he goes directly to the academy of Isaac. Now, Isaac's academy was synonymous with these wells, the wells that were dug. Abraham dug wells, Isaac dug wells. And they say that the wells had water. And the water would rise to greet the people that the wells recognized. Now, water in Torah terminology, water and Torah are synonymous. And the way to greet somebody is proper conduct, which in Hebrew is called derech eretz. Proper conduct, the way of the world, maintaining order, a civilized human being. Thus, Isaac's Torah was to strengthen, to really take the Torah of Shem and Aver and bring it to the level of accentuating proper conduct. There's a saying in Torah, without proper conduct, there's no Torah. Without Torah, there's no proper conduct. So Isaac's Torah was really an extension of Shem and Aver to really hammer home the Torah as given at Mount Sinai in a different form than Shem and Aver. Shem and Aver were teaching the Torah, but ultimately the Torah would be given over, let's say, from the idea of Shem through the Torah of, let's say, Moses, as Shem was an incarnation of Moses. It's basically just it's a different garment of the Torah. It's a different garment. With the intention was for Shem and Aver that you should have the antithesis of the decline of the generation. Shem and Aver's Torah ideally would all the time, like the ladders in Jacob's dream, going from level to level to level. You never want to stay status quo. And all the more so, you don't want to go down. So Isaac's Torah was taking Shem and Aver and really elevating it on level to level. In Hebrew, this is called chayil l'chayil, from strength to strength. And we're going to explain how in the prophecy of Adam that came to be. Now, before we get there, the wells that Isaac dug were really that level of what we're saying, from strength to strength, going from elevation to elevation, which is essentially the same Torah as Shem and Aver, but taking it, really hashing it out, and really going deeper. Thus, that was the Torah that Isaac was teaching, and Jacob, having learned from his father Isaac, he was there, but he never lost scope of the Torah of Shem and Aver. Whereas Esav, he never had he thought he was already at the highest level. So for him, there was no going from higher to higher to higher. He already assumed, I'm the highest. And that's why Shem chose Jacob, who was humble, to be the recipient of that Torah tradition, whereas Esav thought he had that level, and Shem said, okay, if you're already on that level, go by your father, and he went. Now, when Jacob left Beersheba, it said that he was running by the fear of his brother. this is kind of an interesting point. King David was called an Ish Milchama, a man of war. Man of war, in particular, over the oral Torah. That the oral Torah is the nature of battle, to strive to understand and to kill the ego and to find the divine will, to really, really battle in truth. Jacob thereby was afraid of this battle with Esav. Esav fought dirty. He fought with arrogance. Jacob fought with humility. This is why Jacob was called Ish Tam, a wholesome, simple man, and Esav was called the man of the field. So the fear that Jacob had of his brother was in the manner of fighting and killing and war was over the oral Torah. And this is because Esav really learned by Isaac, his father, but he never really earned the level. It's like if you were to learn the Torah today, all in English, and you say, I read and memorized all the Torah in English, but you never got into Hebrew, you never learned the original, and you say, it's even if you bought a DVD with, I have a program on my computer, and it has 50,000 books. I really have this. And imagine if I went around saying, well, you're no match for me. I happen to know 50,000 books. You'd say, wow, he really knows 50,000 books. Oh, it's a sham. I mean, yeah, I have the program, but I can't take pride for knowing 50,000 books. So that's Esav. Esav's going around saying, I reached the top. He was a self-appointed master scholar. And that's why Shem overlooked it and said, go by your father if you're the highest. Isaac saw that Esav had the ability to schmooze, to basically talk the talk, walk the walk, but he never really got into the learning. Remember what we say by Shem. Shem taught the skill, the craft, the trade of how to learn. It's one thing if you memorize everything. I mean, you don't get points for being a photographic memory. You have to be able to compute, analyze, and produce something new. That's the Torah of Shem and Aver. To produce to the point of Navelli. Esav lacked the ability to produce Navelli, whereas Jacob was the master of the academies of Shem and Aver. That's why Jacob serviced for 50 years. That's why truth was given to Jacob. That's why Jacob merited 12 sons. That's why Jacob merited the name Israel. And from that merit of Jacob, you're going to get a Mount Sinai experience. Jacob's seed maintains that the Torah of Mount Sinai is really Shem, waiting in Mount Sinai. Remember what we said a couple classes ago. Shem went after offering the Torah, and only Abraham, Isaac, Jacob accepted the Torah. Shem went and waited at Mount Sinai for 1,300 years. And who did he find there? The seed of Jacob. Thus, the Torah of Shem and Aver was concrete. From strength to strength, it would always go. The Jewish people would be forced to go into exile. Once in exile, the academies of Shem and Aver all over the world, teaching Derech Eretz, proper conduct, maintaining the world, because the Jewish seed would be less likely to assimilate totally, thereby keeping the Torah intact and available for the entire world to reach the roots of learning as Shem and Aver. But if it would have gone from Esav, nay. It would have been lost to arrogance and pride and ego. That was really what Jacob accentuated at the best, because he received directly from Shem and Aver. Thus there would be a nation embedded in Jacob and his seed, as Jacob says to his children, God is one, and we learn that God is one from Shem and Aver. Do not forget the Torah of Shem and Aver. And thus we see today, the Torah is in Hebrew, a direct trait of Shem and Aver. Okay, now that was a little bit off topic. Let's go back and understand how Adam prophesied that the entire world, there would be points of learning, territorial, geographical areas of learning through the world, that when the Jewish nation would go into exile, the world would kind of bring out the Torah of Shem and Aver, influencing the Torah as it went through exile, coming back into the land of Israel, when then the Torah would be revealed in, let's say, the Messianic age. And what we would find is that when the Messianic Torah is revealed, which is called Torat Emet, the true Torah, revealed by Mashiach ben David, which is Messiah, son of David, which is the numerical value, Ish Milchama, man of war. In the Torah, getting to the truth, getting back to the craft and learning, reaching back to the roots of Shem and Aver. What it really shows, this whole thing about the Jew in exile and the academies of Shem and Aver, and then basically the Noahide nations all over the world, is that brotherhood. The brotherhood that goes hand in hand, and this verse that we're going to explain, explains it very clearly. In the Talmud, on page 31a, the English is as such. When they arrived to Babylon, and when he arrived there, he said to him, "Sir, do people really say that these palm trees of Babylon," now remember, a palm tree is synonymous with Torah, as Deborah, the judge, prophetess and judge, sat under a palm tree. That's a side point. Babylon are from the time of Adam. He replied, "You have reminded me of the saying of Rabbi Yossi, son of Chanina. For Rabbi Yossi, son of Chanina, said, what is meant by the verse in Jeremiah 2:6? Through a land that no man passed through, and where no man dwelt. If no one passed, how could anyone dwell? It is to teach you that any land which Adam decreed should be inhabited is inhabited, and any land which Adam decreed should not be inhabited is not inhabited." Now remember, English is a half-best explanation. The word inhabited is the Hebrew for yeshiva. The terminology, as we know, method or academy of learning. Now, anyone who's following along, go to Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 6, and you'll see the verse. "In the land that no man passed and did not settle, a man there." Okay, now let's go into my notes. That's Adam Arishon, the first man, Adam, and his explaining how the world would be developed. Adam decreed where there would be areas of learning and where there would not be areas of learning. Meaning which places would be rich with the Torah tradition of Shem and Aver, and which areas would be devoid. So when the Jews would be out of Israel into the world, the Torah would go through these points of basically learning. And the Torah, we had in Song of Songs, chapter 6, verses 11 and 12. The Torah goes through all the lands of the world. Imagine a stream, and it picks up minerals and aspects of rocks. And in the end, the water is very rich with minerals. But it's because it went through all the avenues of the world. Thus, it's not just really the Jewish people per se. It's the Torah had to go through the land of Israel, development through Shem and Aver, through Shem and Aver throughout the world, back to the land, and the whole world then can bask in the true teaching of Shem and Aver with the garment of Moses' Torah at Mount Sinai, of which Shem was there waiting for the giving of the Torah. Now, how do we get that from this verse? The verse says 5 things that are essential. It says Ish, a high level of man. It says Adam, another term of man. It says the word Ayin Beit Reish, which is Aver. It says Shem, and it says yeshiva. Now, anybody that knows anything about Shem and Aver after listening to this class for the last 40 minutes would understand this is one of our verses. This is really one of our verses. So let's break down the verse as to what it means for us. When it says ish, which is basically the highest level of man, according to any methodology in Torah, that means Talmud Chacham, a Torah scholar. This is for Noahide, this is for Jew, this is for anybody. Anybody who becomes a bona fide Torah scholar becomes this level called ish. Now we learned in Vayikra, in Leviticus, that any person that learns Torah, from the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, to a regular Jew, a convert to Judaism, a Noahide, anybody that learns Torah is called Adam, the level of man. And since they learn the word Adam, man, everybody that learns Torah is on the same level as the high priest. Thus, if you are a master of learning Torah, you are called the higher level of man, Ish. Again, Noahide, Jew, whoever you are, master of Torah, you are Ish. Anyone who learns Torah, Adam. Two different terminologies of mankind. But then it says Aver and Shem. So when we go into the verse, drop my book. How can we understand the verse now in the context of Shem and Aver? In a land that there was not Aver in it as a study by a man. Thus, that's saying anybody that did not, where there is no Torah learning, and not yeshiva, not academied, a man there. So, okay, let's go into the English. This will be a little easier. The verse said, through a land that no man passed, through and where no man dwelt. If no one passed, how could anyone dwell? Now, remember all the terminology we said. Academy, two levels of man, Shem and Aver. It is to teach you that any land which Adam decreed should have an academy has an academy. Now that would be where there is Aver, where there is Shem, where there is an Ish, and where there is an Adam. And any land which Adam decreed should not be inhabited, there's no academy, there's no Shem, there's no Aver, there's no level of Adam man, and no level of Ish man. Then it will not be inhabited. Thus, what constitutes a level of inhabitants? What is a Torah inhabitant? Where there's an academy. Which academy? Shem and Aver. What happens at Shem and Aver? You either learn Torah or you master Torah. Where is this applicable to? Anywhere in the world. And ostensibly, it happened in a lot of places over the world. And through Jewish exile, let's say the vessel of which the Torah went over the world, it learned through all these different lands and all these academies. Thus, the Torah knowledge we have today really comes from those places. There was essentially an unwritten brotherhood going on for a long time. The two nations really existing, kind of, it's called acher ba'acher in Torah, back to back. They were brothers, but they didn't know it. When exile is coming out and concluded, what you're going to find is the Jewish nation will be back in Israel, the Torah will be revealed by Mashiach, the true Torah teachings will be illuminated, Shem and Aver as the root of Hebrew, remember that, will be known and manifest, and there will be a Noahide nation in the world to receive the Torah teaching of Shem and Aver through the garment of the Torah of Moses that Shem helped give over at Mount Sinai as he waited there for 1,300 years. Thus the brotherhood really shows up very nicely. If you take the word echad in Hebrew, one, aleph, chet, daled, echad, which the whole idea of one, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, listen, O Israel, God, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. That declaration was taught over to Jacob by Shem himself. And the Talmud tells that when the sons of Israel said to Jacob, Jacob feared that his bed was not complete. And they said, listen, Israel our father, Hashem our God, Hashem is one. And what did Jacob say? Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is Shem, the glorious kingdom, may he live forever and ever. What he said was, Shem is the one that taught God's unity. When we proclaim God's unity in the world, let us know that the Torah is also one. And you take the word one, rearrange the letters, it spells de'ach, that of the brotherhood. And this was also a piece we mentioned from Song of Songs, Shir Shirim, in the most recent verse, 6, 10, and 11, or 11, 12 I think it was, 6, 11, 12, that there are 4 levels of Jews. The priest, the Levi, the Israel, and the 4th is the righteous convert. Now the righteous convert, according to the commentary, is not called of a house. There's the house of the priest, house of the Levi, the house of the regular Jewish person, but not the house of the convert. He's called the fearer of God, because he comes from being extracted from the world. But the revelation is that when we lose touch with our roots, anybody in the world, and you get back on track with Torah, we go through the world and you find the righteous Noahide who does come from a house. And what is that house? The house of Shem, the house of Aver, through these academies, whether in the land or out of the land. That's why the Noahide proper name would be Bayit of the house of. The house of Shem, the house of Aver, as we introduced Jacob in the house of Shem and the house of Aver today. Thus, this is the secret of the 3 levels of the letter Shin, have the 4th letter in the tefillin that we wear. There's a 4th level Shin. I don't know if you've seen the letter Shin. There's 3 branches, and on tefillin there's a 4th branch. But the secret is there's a 5th branch, and the 2 nations are side by side. Okay, so now that we have the understanding that Adam declared where these levels of basically of establishment of academies will be located, and it's embedded, just like the Israel is the Holy Land for whatever reason, Adam, in conjunction with Shem and Aver and the Torah, decreed where learning would be possible anywhere in the world. Thus, the whole world is really working together for the sake of Torah. Whether it's a Jew, whether it's a Noahide, whether it's Israel, whether it's anywhere outside the land of Israel, the world is working to making the Torah one and relevant and manifest in the world. Okay. Now, we're going to read one more thing, and that's going to be the last part for today. And we're going to have to continue next week to fill in the blanks. This is a really interesting piece. Okay, this is an extension of understanding Jacob having gone through the academies of Shem and Aver. Jacob was buried in the house of Aver for 14 years. So again, that was a novelty. We thought it was only the house of Shem. Now we're finding out there was a house of Aver as well. Jacob went out from there, or from Shem, as he learned from Shem as well in Beersheba, and he came to Aram, and it was found to stand on the well. Jacob went outside the land, stood in the well where he found Rachel, and Aram is from the language Aramaic, and that was by the level of Nineveh, the level of the offspring of Shem, Ashur. So Jacob already has Beersheba, and outside the land, that's 3, Garden of Eden 4, Jerusalem 5, Isaac 6, and outside the land 7. And there is to be explicit that if he went from the house of Aver after he was there for 14 years, and he went to Aram, and the verse says Jacob went out from Beersheba, and he went to Haran. Yet we say that he arrived in Haran, and he returned and prayed at the house of the fathers on the Temple Mount. So Jacob went from Beersheba to Haran, where he stopped in the middle at Jerusalem to pray. And the ladder reached and stood from Beersheba all the way to Jerusalem. And from all of this we prove that Beersheba he went to the city Haran, and not from Beersheba to the house of Aver. So we conclude that Jacob left the house of Aver and went out from that academy of learning. After 14 years, he went to the city Haran. And there is to answer that the house of Aver also was in Beersheba. That's where we learn that Aver's yeshiva was in Beersheba. And he did not go to the house of, he didn't go at all from Beersheba to Aver. Meaning he didn't leave Beersheba to go find some mythological learning institution of Aver. It was in Beersheba the whole time. Rather, he was buried and hidden in learning and studies in Beersheba, in the house of Aver, because of the fear of his brother. And again, there was the literal fear of Esav. Also, Esav was different in learning Torah than Jacob. Jacob wanted to learn the Torah as a craft of truth, not as a craft of arrogance. So he stayed there for 14 years, and he went from there to Haran, the city of Haran. And furthermore, it's not enough that we say this alone, that there's a hint in the words of Beersheba, that there is in it the letters of Aver, house of Aver, and the word Arba, which is 4, hinting at 14 years that he was there. And furthermore, we see that Isaac, his father, also had his study hall in Beersheba. As we say, Isaac was an elder, tremendous in learning. Zakin Yoshev b'yeshiva haya. Isaac was an elder sitting in the study hall. And all 3 houses of study of Shem and Aver and Isaac and Beersheba, they were, and it's hinted at in the 2 words, from Beersheba, which spells Shem, spells Aver, and spells father. With that said, we can understand, and we're going to continue next week with what I had planned for today. How many levels of learning were there? Follow the life of Jacob, follow his 50 years of service, follow every move he made. He went to his father's learning, Beersheba Aver, Beersheba Shem, Jerusalem, Garden of Eden, outside the land by Adam, and Nineveh, the offspring of Shem, Asher. And that was where he went to Rachel and Leah to get married by Lavan. Thus, Jacob accentuated and pointed out 7 areas of learning Torah in academies, and that was the 50 years that he served Shem and Aver. And the Torah we have today came directly from Jacob in his study and scholarship from Shem and Aver. And the entire world is ultimately working on what Shem and Aver started a long time ago. That in the land and out of the land, we're working together to make that Torah possible. And there was Shem and Aver coming off the ark. The forefathers' job, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, was to take that Torah and not let it go stale. To make it on the level of being vibrant and strength to strength. That was the task of Shem and Aver, to find a conduit that would take the Torah on that level. And Adam prophesied the Torah would be dwelled when there would be the levels of a people or a person learning the Torah and a higher level of a person mastering the Torah. The difference between being called Adam, man, the level of the high priest, and the level of the absolute Torah scholar, which applies to anybody that learns the Torah as Adam foresaw, Shem and Aver established, and the Torah that's coming back representation of the white tzitzit that we wear today in the merit of Shem, son of Noah. That's all for today. Next week we're going to continue with this theme, how it becomes more relevant beyond the text into a philosophy, and now we can understand the Torah and academies of Shem and Aver were not simple. They were not little establishments. It was a worldwide endeavor, one that never ended, still going on, still thriving. It may have been back to back, meaning a little bit vague and opaque. But the more we're coming towards the redemption on earth, we're starting to see the two sides come together to make Torah one in the world. Thank you.